one of the interesting things about this super yacht is it was mired in all sorts of layers of almost deliberate, we think, in fact, deliberate attempts to hide its true ownership. Yes, we have got down to the ownership. Russian oligarch. Now this yacht is being held. It won't be going anywhere. It was here for a refit. It won't be going anywhere. And it's just another indication. We will not stand by whilst Putin's cronies are allowed to sail around the world in these kind of yachts, and people in Ukraine are suffering.
Yeah, right. So says the righteous ones. This was how it started. For being a Russian and owning a yacht, you had no right to sail around the world in your yacht because some people are suffering. Did any country ever seize assets belonging to Americans because George Bush bombed Iraq based on lies? And some people in Iraq were suffering? Is this hypocrisy or short-term memories from our righteous Europeans? Hello and welcome again to the Queen Luxus podcast. Geopolitical Queen here with today's episode on the seizure of Russian oligarchs' assets by Western countries, which has backfired and causing financial losses to taxpayers. Under the US and European laws, assets that are frozen remain the ownership of the owners. In this case, the oligarchs. They can't be transferred or sold. These yachts will be secured in the docks by the authorities and prevented from sailing to safer shores. So what happened in the global world again? In the wake of the Russian special military operation in February 2022 in Ukraine, Western governments decided to unleash an avalanche of economic sanctions against Russian oligarchs by seizing their assets simply because they were Russians and rich. Billions of dollars of Russian-owned luxury assets, including mansions, luxury cars, and private jets, were seized by Western governments. But the symbolism of the seizure of the oligarchs' super yachts, the vast floating Versailles palaces, was what captured the public's imagination. Anti-corruption campaigners, as usual, hoped at the time that these vessels would be auctioned off and the proceeds donated to Ukraine. The hatred of Russian oligarchs' wealth was so visceral, especially in countries like the US and the UK, that Grant Shapps, the then transport minister, took it upon himself to go to the port to shoot a video for TikTok where the minister announced that Fee, a super yacht worth an estimated £38 million or about $15 million equivalent, belonged to a Russian oligarch who was a friend of President Putin. A statement which has been debunked several times. The problem, however, is the owner of this yacht, which is known as Fee, Sergei Naumanko, has no connection to Putin and doesn't even support the war. Now Manco has repeatedly denied any connection to President Putin or the Russian state, and has twice unsuccessfully appealed to the English courts to have the yacht released. In May 2023, an English High Court judge said that Sharp's TikTok video claims that the owner had close connections to Putin were excusable political hyperbole. The Court of Appeal in March this year, 2024, said it was troubled by Sharp's incorrect statements. Both courts, however, upheld the UK detention order for the vessel. The financial problem for the Western countries now is that these assets, which were once prized as trophies in the West, coordinated to respond to Russia's aggression in their thoughts, have rather racked up vast maintenance costs for taxpayers in some countries. One yacht, which was seized in San Diego, has racked up maintenance bills of about $9 million a year to be paid by the US government. Several are the multiple super yachts like Fee that are trapped in ports around the world. Several are also stuck in seemingly never-ending legal quagmires with vastly expensive lawyers hired by often opaque offshore owners battling for their release. The US and the European Union countries often can't prove owners of the yachts. One yacht was sold in Antigua, but the buyer, Google's Eric Schmidt, backed out, realizing the legal headache. Some yachts, however, have simply disappeared. Two yachts owned by Dmitry Mazepin, another Russian billionaire, vanished from the Sardinian port of Olbia. For Western governments, resolving the fate of these super yachts will be a high-stakes test of the effectiveness of economic sanctions. So what do you think? Can some countries just decide to seize private citizens' assets with impunity just because they are nationals of particular countries? Or are some lawyers working for the oligarchs who own them are asserting that the seizures of such acts are of modern piracy? Well, kindly leave your comments in the comment section below, and I will be back with the next broadcast. Good day.